everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Suzanne Doolin, and I am the founder of Get a Bigger Boat. And in just a moment, you're going to be learning from certified course creator Karen Creel. At Get a Bigger Boat, we help small businesses get off the ground with our signature program, the Startup Checklist. This hands-on business incubator has two versions, one for general entrepreneurship and one for online course creators. Our business philosophy is to create great relationships with our customers so we can spend our time helping you and spending less time selling. Our showcase series of webinars is part of the Startup Checklist for course creators. Through this series, we help course creators connect to people who need their information and services, and we help them to build their mailing list faster by amplifying their work. If any of you are interested in developing your own small businesses, I'll provide the links to the Startup Checklist in the chat as soon as I turn this over to Karen. And I love to talk to entrepreneurs, so I'm putting in my link to set up a 20-minute Zoom call for free, a free mini consultation. So now let's talk about the person that you came here to see, which is Karen Creel. Karen is a certified garden coach. She has taught hundreds of students how to easily grow their own backyard vegetable gardens using her no-fuss gardening method. Karen believes that everyone can grow their own vegetables, but she also understands that people are busy and cannot spend hours weeding, watering, and fighting pests. So the no-fuss gardening method focuses on simple steps to help you create a successful, low-maintenance vegetable garden. In this webinar, you're going to learn 5 easy steps to grow a successful garden. We hope that you're going to be able to use this information to get started growing your own vegetables. But if you feel like you need more support, we're going to share at the end of this webinar about Karen's course, the No Fuss Vegetable Garden, and a free offer just for the webinar participants of a really cute t-shirt. So look for links, and there's a QR code on the screen. Take it away, Karen.
Oh, thank you. First of all, thank you all for joining. It's a rainy day here in North Georgia, but I have planted my cool season vegetables probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, so I am welcoming the rain. So let's get started and talk about how you can grow a successful vegetable garden. I've been growing vegetables in my own backyard for over 35 years, and I can guarantee you that I made lots of mistakes at first, but I also learned a lot of things. And I think I was trying to make growing vegetables too hard. There was lots of information out there that was confusing, or sometimes it was just conflicting information. So sometimes you just have to do trial and error to find out what works best for you. So I'm going to simplify this. I think gardening is simple, and growing vegetables is like growing children or taking care of pets. They all just have some basic needs. The thing with plants is, first of all, they grow in the soil. So you have to put them in a healthy environment. So one of the important steps in growing a no-fuss garden is to start off with a healthy soil. Pests like nothing more than a plant that is stressed. So we want to minimize the stress on our vegetable plants, and we're going to do that again by planting in a healthy soil. As you can see, this little plant is in soil, but what you don't see is underneath the soil, and there's all of these microscopic bacteria and fungi whose sole purpose is to make your plant grow strong. So we'll talk a little bit when we go over each step, how to create a healthy soil. The other thing is sunlight. Every plant needs sunlight. Some plants require more than others, but most vegetable plants are going to require at least 4 hours of sun a day, while others like tomatoes and squash and peppers, cucumbers, all of those are going to be at their best and are going to thrive when you provide them with about 8 hours of sunlight a day. So that's one of the things we'll talk about, is locating your garden in the perfect place that gives you the amount of sunlight for the plant or the vegetable that you are going to be planting. And then to everything there is a season, and that includes vegetables. There's no sense trying to grow tomatoes in March in North Georgia. And a lot of times people, when they ask me questions, they'll say, what zone do you garden in? And I tell everyone to throw that garden zone out the window. What's more important, since I'm in zone 7A, but also is parts of Virginia, which is hundreds of miles from me, I want everyone to garden specifically for their city. And the way that you do that is you just go on Google, and you first want to know what is your last frost date and what is your first frost date in your city. And we'll go into that a little bit in a minute, because this is how you plan your garden and you plan what's going to thrive in your garden during that season. Then the other step in creating a healthy garden is you do have to take care of it. I create a no-fuss garden by following just a few simple steps, with things like creating a healthy soil, putting my garden in the right area where it receives the sunlight that that particular vegetable needs, planting the right vegetable in the right season, and then making that garden as easy as I can to maintain. And one of the ways that you maintain the garden is we're going to look at mulching everything. We're going to look at replenishing your nutrients throughout the garden season. We're going to mulch. We're going to put our garden where it is located close to our home so that we have easy access to it. And we can also take a look at watching it carefully for pests. And one of the things in the no-fuss garden is also under maintenance is pest control. And we'll talk a little bit about how to start your plant off right so that it's not having to fight all of the enemies out there. So first of all, how do you create a healthy soil? Well, first we're going to garden organically, and that means to use organic fertilizer for one thing. While your plant honestly doesn't know the difference between, say, like a Miracle Grow, which is a synthetic fertilizer, or a Spoma, which is an organic all vegetable fertilizer, your soil does. So remember, we're always trying to create a healthy soil. So when you use a lot of synthetic fertilizers, those adds a lot of salt to your soil, and that's one thing we don't want. It also gives your plant a good jolt of fertilizer, but then it is all gone. When you use organic fertilizers, they are slow release, so you're allowing your vegetables to get a sustained fertilizer. The other thing is, remember all of those microscopic bacteria and fungi and beetles and spiders and worms underneath the soil, they appreciate organic fertilizers. You want to avoid tilling the ground. Now, I know a lot of people do garden in the ground. Personally, I have raised beds. I think they're a lot easier to control your soil and also to easily maintain. But I know there's a lot of people who grow in ground, and I did that years ago. If you're going to choose to grow in ground, I would suggest that you till one time. I would suggest that you not till long row after row, but you actually create little blocks of gardens, just like I have 4 6x4 gardens. I suggest that you till up like 4x4 squares, 6x6 squares, and then allow for allow for paths in between. These can either be paths of grass, which you just, weed eat or mow, or you can actually get all of that grass up and have straw or wood chips around your beds. The thing about having smaller beds, they're easier to control. And also studies have found that you actually get a more productive garden when you grow in the squares. Also, I do square foot gardening, which makes it much easier to plant. And I also practice monoculture, which means instead of having one bed or one square area that you tilled up with only one sort of vegetable in it, we are going to talk a little bit about how to interplant lots of vegetables in that one square. That also creates a healthier soil. Then you're going to use compost throughout the gardening season, and you're going to add organic matter to the soil all through the garden season. And we'll talk about a little bit more about that. It goes without saying that you're going to choose a location that drains well. Oftentimes where you are starting a new garden and you choose to till, you may be either depending on where you live, you may be hitting a lot of clay soil, or you may have a sandy soil. And while you can amend that garden and eventually get it to where you want it, it will take you 2 or 3 years to get to that healthy soil that you want. And then throughout the garden season, we're going to keep any bare soil covered with mulch, or in the winter, I do not garden. I don't garden under in a greenhouse or under cold frames. So that means I want my bare soil covered, and I will plant a cover crop. Also, the minute you put that plant into the ground, you want to mulch around it so that it is not having to compete with weeds. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people quit gardening in about August, because the weeds have taken over their garden. But if you just do this one simple step of keeping that soil covered with mulch, that won't happen. And then you're going to choose the right location. I had someone actually email me this morning that said, I have a hill that doesn't get much sunlight at all. What vegetables or fruit can I grow? And I had to say, probably nothing. First of all, I didn't know how much sun, but I do know that there's only a few things that can grow in 4 to 6 hours of sun. And that is, you can grow some herbs in 4 to 6 hours, some things like some mints, things that do not bloom. Or you can grow some of the cool season vegetables like lettuce in a less amount of sun. But if you really want a vegetable plant that is not struggling to survive, they do require sunlight, photosynthesis to grow. You need to have 6 to 8 hours of sun. If you are going to grow summer vegetables such as tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, squash, all of those things giving you a large amount of fruit, then you will want 6 to 8 hours of sun. So what you're going to do is you're going to go out in your backyard, front yard, side yard, wherever you choose to grow your garden, and you are going to find the south facing location. That is the best place to locate your garden. But you're also going to just grab a piece of paper, and you're going to locate east, west, north, and south on the paper. And you're going to go out into your garden 3 to 4 times during the day, and you're going to mark where the sun is located. You're also going to notice is that back fence or that shed or your house or your fence or a tree that hasn't quite bloomed out yet. Are any of those things obstructing the sunlight? And then once you do that, you can find the best place to locate your garden. I have some clients that it ended up that their patio was the best place for their garden because it had full sun. So we did container gardening. The second choice would be a west-facing location that gets afternoon sun. You also want to place it close to a water source, because there's nothing worse than having to carry lots and lots of watering cans full of water to your garden in the hot August sun. The other thing I always encourage when I do garden consults for my clients is if we have several locations that would be good for their garden, we always place it near the house where your garden is not an afterthought. You want to be able to enjoy your garden. You want to walk out there in the morning with your cup of coffee and take a look and see what's going on. Or you want to go out there in the evening after you get home from work and enjoy a little time just looking in your garden and seeing how it's doing. So place it close to your home. And this is I think sometimes after having a healthy soil, I think this is one of the most important things you can do. Again, no matter how much I want to plant tomatoes right now, and they are out in the garden centers, I know that they will not thrive. If you want to know when to plant your vegetables, the first thing you need to do is go on Google and just Google, when is the last frost date for, mine would be Chickamauga, Georgia. And then you are going to write down, when is my last frost date? So everything that you are going to plant is going to be based on these dates. It'll also tell you when you can plant your last vegetable so that it matures before the cold season hits. My first frost date is October the 19th through the 31st, and then my last frost date is April the 15th. So you can see I am nearing that. I have looked ahead at my weather forecast, and my temperatures are going to be anywhere from 45 to 80 for the next several days. But I guarantee you, I will have a frost either close to April the 15th or afterwards. So as you can see, the zone you're in doesn't matter. The zone generally is there for perennial bushes and plants that you want to grow. So no matter where you live, if you're coming to me from California or Chattanooga or Canada, everybody's planting dates revolve around your first and last frost date, because as a general rule, we're going to see in a minute, cool season vegetables are 2 to 4 weeks before your last frost. That doesn't matter where you live. And your warm season vegetables, those tomatoes and cucumbers, all of those things are going to be around 2 to 4 weeks after your last frost date. So for me, I have already put my cool season vegetables in the ground, but I will not plant my warm season until most likely the 1st of May. All right, so cold season for me is November, December, January, and part of February. That I know that there is the average frost date. The average temperature is usually around 35 or less, and there is a big chance that there's going to be a freeze. Now, if you live in Florida, you very well may not have a real cold season. You may have a cool season in November, December, and January. I have a friend that lives in Tampa, and her cool season is starts in around November, December, and January. The cool season where I live is where the average temperature is between 35 and 65. And I just gave you the 10-day forecast for my area. And as you can see, sure enough, that's where I am. I am in the cool season. The 75 and 80-degree weather is very unusual, and it's only for a couple of days. The warm season for me starts in May, and that's where my average high temperature is 65 and 85, and I won't have a frost. And then hot season around here is around July, where our average high temperature is 85 and can consistently stay that way. So you're going to choose the right plant for the right season. Each plant has a season that it grows in. And you have cool season, warm season, and hot season plants. Cool season are the things that I have in my garden right now. I have leafy green vegetables. I always call this the salad garden season. So after you've checked out when your cool season is, you'll know these are the things that you can grow. You're not going to grow tomatoes, no matter how many is in the nursery. So you're going to do leafy green vegetables, lettuce, spinach, Swiss chard, kale. All of those are leafy green vegetables. And then root crops. Those include carrots, beets, radishes. Those are some of the turnips. Those are some of the things. And then a group of vegetables called brassica. Those include, and these are what I have in my garden right now. I have cabbage, broccoli, and collard greens. Collard greens are a staple in the South, and those are some other cool season. And then, of course, there's peas. There's garden peas, snow peas, and my favorite, which I have growing on a trellis right now, are sugar snap peas. The warm season, again, you're going to Google when your warm season is, and whenever you see where your warm season falls, that's when you're going to plant tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, eggplants, and peppers. You're going to wait until your last frost, and then you're going to look at the weather. Last year, I was not able to plant my tomatoes until Mother's Day, simply because we had some cooler than usual weather. So you do have to keep an eye out. Tomatoes cannot tolerate temperatures less than 50. So no matter how much you cover them, the soil temperature is generally still cold. And while your tomatoes may grow, you're not going to get the amount of produce you want. And you have just now just stressed that tomato. So now it's open for more pest invasion. Hot season is okra and sweet potatoes. You'll notice sweet potatoes are hot season, and I failed to mention in cool season is when you just have your white potatoes. I always grow the little new potatoes. I do not allow my potatoes to get large enough that I have to store them. And so the other thing I always encourage people is to dream big, but to start small. If you have trouble taking care of a large amount, you're going to be discouraged and you will give up. But if you start small and have lots of successes, then you'll be encouraged to even grow more vegetables and increase the amount you grow. I think that was one of the reasons that I failed in my early vegetable gardens. First of all, I tilled. I had a lot of clay that I didn't amend well enough. And then the other thing is I did not have time to take care of it. So I became discouraged. Currently, I have 4 raised beds. Actually, I have 5, but one has strawberries in it. In my beds, they are not all planted now. I have, like I said, I have spinach, I have sugar snap peas, I have 4 collard plants, I have 4 broccoli, and I have 2 cabbages. So I am growing what I know I can eat during this season. So I encourage you to choose easy to grow vegetables. Easy to grow vegetables in cool season are things like lettuce, radishes, spinach, kale, and peas. All of those are very easy. Carrots are a little more difficult. You have to be sure that you space them good, that you have them in a lot of loose soil. And then when you get to the warm season, tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, peppers, all of those are easy. But when you start doing things like eggplant, you get into more difficult ones that have a tendency to have more pest. But with cool season, this is only my 2nd year of growing broccoli and cabbage and collards. They are a little difficult only because they're a favorite vegetable of the cabbage moth. So I have my bed covered with insect netting. The other thing is, I don't want to go out to my garden in 30 days and have a whole bed of lettuce. There's no way I could eat that lettuce in 1 week. So when I planted my garden and I was planting lettuce and spinach, I planted about a half of the bed. And then I will go out there probably tomorrow when it has stopped raining, and I will plant the other half. That way I have lettuce coming up at different parts of the season. I also noticed that I know that I live in an area that it gets hot quickly. So in May, I could have some very hot weather at the end of May. So what I want to do is I want to stop planting my cool season plants that mature, say, in 35 or 40 days. I probably will not plant any more lettuce or any of my other cool season vegetables after April the 15th, or certainly the end of April, because we don't want those to mature into the hot season. They will bolt. So this is the big part that people get hung up on. I think what most of the people in my garden classes say is, I live a busy life. I work, my kids are in soccer and baseball and cheerleading. It just seems like it's something every day and all weekend. So I don't have time to maintain my garden. But one of the things that I teach them, if you start out right and put these simple steps in place, you'll have more than enough time. After you plant your garden, you should not have to spend over 30 minutes, maybe 3 to 4 times a week in your garden. And if you're lucky enough to have some rain during the season, like I am now, I won't have to water for a couple of days. So here's the steps to make your garden easy to maintain. First, locate it close to a water source so it's easy to water. You can also put drip irrigation inside your beds. The other thing that you want to do is the very minute you put that plant into the ground, you want to mulch around it. Now you have 2 or 3 options. One option is straw. Straw is not my first choice, simply because it takes a while to break down and it's kind of bulky. You don't want to use anything like seeds. You don't want to use hay because it has a lot of weed seeds in it. There is a product that I use, and I just buy it at my local Ace Hardware. You can get it on Amazon, but it is called Soil Conditioner. And it's just finely chipped pine bark. It's like little squares. And by next year, it will have broken down and it will have added some organic matter to my bed. I also mulch with compost. If you have a lot of leaves and you have put them in bags the year before and they're now nice and broke down, you can mulch around with those leaves. Do not use pine needles. They will add a lot of acid to your garden. Or do not use the bagged wood chips. They will not break down quick enough, and they take the nitrogen out of your soil. So you're going to water, and when you mulch around, you're conserving water because it allows the water to stay in the soil and not evaporate out. Fertilizing, if you start out with a healthy soil that's full of organic matter and compost, that's all most of your vegetables will need, especially for the first couple of weeks. My leafy greens, I actually do not fertilize. I do fertilize my cabbage, broccoli, and collard greens because they are large vegetables. So they will be needing a little bit more nutrition, but I wait a couple of weeks and then I fertilize them with an organic all-purpose vegetable fertilizer. There's no need to go out and buy 6 or 7 or 8 different kind of amendments. Just fertilize with an all-purpose. Then pest control. If you start out correctly with your vegetables, you're going to minimize the pest in your garden. So there's a couple of things you need to know about pest control. Well, there's three. There's 3 things you're going to do to minimize it. You are either going to deter the pest, you're going to invite predators in to do your pest control for you, or you're going to present a barrier for those pests so they cannot get in. So let's just take, for example, when I planted my cool season brassicas that cabbage moths absolutely love. First thing I did was I planted them, and I do square foot gardening. So my broccoli went in a square foot, my cabbage went in a square foot, and then my collard greens went in a square foot. But I skipped a square foot 3 places in my garden, and I added marigolds. Marigolds deter the cabbage moth. But the cabbage moth is pretty persistent. So the next thing you need to do is place a barrier so she cannot get to your vegetables. What she does is she lays her eggs on your leaves. So anytime you're in a garden, you want to go out there and check your leaves, because who knows, she might slip up under my netting. But you need to check your leaves and be sure you don't see little tiny white eggs, because in less than a week, those little eggs will hatch out. You'll have green worms on your leaves, and they will be destroyed in no time. So I use insect netting. I got it off of Amazon. It's an insect netting that had several hoops with it, just these green hoops that go easily into your garden. You lay your netting over it, and then you lay your netting over it, and then you have some clamps to clamp it on. So I put it all the way across my bed, and then I just laid some rocks along the edge of my bed to be sure she couldn't get in. Now, there's really not any herbs that I can plant this time of year to invite in beneficials, but when I get to the squash in the summer, then I want to deter the squash vine borer. I get more questions about squash vine borer than anything, but you're going to do the same 3 principles. We're going to plant our squash plant, or if you're doing seeds, when that plant gets up large enough for you to see it and to cover it, you're going to do the 3 principles. You are going to put something in there that deters the pest, and I guess I'll use marigolds again. I also have chives in my bed. That's another good deterrent. You can plant onions close to your squash plant. So that would be step number 1. We're going to try to deter the squash vine borer. Secondly, and most importantly, this worked great for me last year, is I invited in beneficial insects around my squash plants. So how did I do that? I planted a little plant that's called flower, that's called sweet alyssum, ALYSSUM, and it is planted by seed all around the border of my bed. It invites in parasitic wasps, and I saw wasps over the last 2 years that I've never seen in my garden before, because I planted sweet alyssum. So sweet alyssum is the mortal enemy of the squash vine borer. It will attach to her larva, lay its eggs, and when they hatch out, then they eat her larva. So you know the squash vine borer is a moth. She lays her eggs at the base of the stem of your squash. Then she bores in and destroys your squash. So thirdly, we have done a deterrent. We have invited in beneficial insects. And then the next thing we're going to do is provide a barrier. And that same netting will go over my squash plants as soon as I plant them, or as soon as they come up. So that's how you do pest control. You also go out into your garden at least every 2 to 3 days, look underneath leaves and look everywhere around your garden. So now I wanted to leave a little time for you to ask me questions. And I think Suzanne probably is going to run those questions and give them to me. So please, we have about 10 minutes, I guess, don't we, Suzanne, for those
Yes,
questions?
and I'll just come in by voice. And
Okay.
the first question that we had, I'll make sure I get to the very first one, because I promised them that we would do that one first. So
Okay.
we had a question: can we grow some veggies in pots on a patio?
Oh, absolutely. I even maximize my space on my own patio. So there's a lot of great things out there, and more and more people are growing container garden. So the seed companies and the plant companies have really made an effort to create lots that we can do. So let's say you're going to go to the nursery. The first thing you're going to do is, when you start looking at seed packets, the things that you're going to plant by seed in cool season would be lettuce, which is great for containers. Carrots, you want to look on that seed packet, and there should be a little note on there that says container friendly. All of the leafy greens will be fine in there. I wouldn't do the big plants like the brassica plants, but you could have a salad garden on your patio in containers. When you get to the warm season vegetables, it's the same thing. You're going to go to the nursery. You're going to look at all of their tomato plants, and there's some good ones that are good for containers. They'll say container friendly, and those are things like salad tomatoes. Also, this year, I actually planted a sugar snap pea that is seeds of change, I believe is the name of it. And it only grows 3 foot tall. So that would be great for a container. You could just put you a little trellis in there and grow some peas up that. So just look for container friendly. And most of the time when it says container friendly, it'll suggest the size of your pot, like a 12 by 12 pot. Be sure they have lots of drainage. You may want to elevate that pot up on some rocks or something, just so that you won't stain your patio or deck when you're watering. And then those will need watering more often, most likely about every day in the hot summer. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Karen. There's a great follow-up question I wanted to get in while you're talking about that. Gloria asked, what's the best way to cover raised planter boxes? I live in the city and squirrels are a big problem. Also, is it better to use plastic or wooden planter boxes?
I think that the wooden planter boxes just last longer. I had a client that bought a house, and the previous people who lived there had those plastic ones, and they weren't strong enough. So the soil actually bowed out. So I prefer the wooden ones, but there's also a great option that I think I'll probably try next year. And those are the new metal beds. One place is called Garden in Minutes, and they have round and square beds that are metal. And you can actually purchase trellises that go in those, and you can purchase a watering grid, which will fit directly inside the bed. So as far as squirrels, we always have this question. You can go on like Amazon, or you can go on Gardener Supply, and they actually have, they look like cages, I guess I would say, that are just framed out that you could sit directly on your beds, but you could easily have someone make those for you if you're not handy. Just do a frame, 4 sides, something on the bottoms, on the sides, and then just cover it with some chicken wire, something like that they can't get through, and just set it directly on your bed. The other option is I designed a raised bed garden for someone who they actually built a fence around it to keep any critters out. I think they had woodchucks that they were afraid were going to get in. Okay, Suzanne.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so next question is what causes grape tomato skins to split?
Generally, it's a water problem. It's not being watered consistently. It's like if you water today, but you go on vacation and it doesn't get any water, and then you come back and you water it too much. Or I had some of mine split last year. They're still edible. There's no reason you can't eat them. I did mine. It's because we had so much rain. We had like a week or 10 days worth of rain. So generally over watering or inconsistent watering.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then the last one that we have is so far, unless somebody hops in, is what can one do to get carrots to grow bigger?
One of the things is be sure that you're not planting them too close together. I think that's one of the things that happen because, carrots are a root vegetable. So they're competing for space underneath the ground. So you have to be sure that I'll always plant mine a little thick, and then I do thin them out. And when I thin them out, I just cut them. The other thing is you have to be sure that you, let's just say you're growing the little finger carrots. So for that, you might just need to have a bed that has 6 or 7 inches of soil in it. But if you are wanting to plant those big long carrots that get to be 10 or 11 inches long, you're going to have them in loose soil that, you may need a bed that is 18 inches tall or 2 feet tall. So I always choose the smaller ones, but then also give them plenty of room underground to grow. Carrots absolutely have to have consistent watering. You can't let them dry out. So consistent watering. And then if you want to, midway between the growing season, just do an all-purpose organic fertilizer. You want to be sure that you never use a high nitrogen fertilizer for carrots, or you're going to get beautiful green tops and you won't get very big carrots. So spacing, consistent watering, loose soil so that they can grow and they don't become stunted because they're hitting clay or rocks. And then mid-season, go ahead and fertilize them. Okay.
Okay, I think that's it so far. I was hoping that you could advance your slide and tell us a little bit about your
Yes.
course.
You.
And also, I just want to say, I always get so hungry when I go through this webinar because talking about homegrown carrots and tomatoes, they just don't even compare to the grocery store. So anyway,
no,
now I'm hungry.
No, and even lettuce, you just would not believe how good lettuce is straight from the garden. All right, I want to thank you all for joining me in this webinar, and I did want to take an opportunity to introduce you to my garden course. As Suzanne said, I have been teaching locally for years in the Chattanooga area and have taught hundreds of students how to grow their own vegetables. I also do one-on-one coaching and garden consults locally. But I knew that I wanted to help more people because, of course, my mission is to get everyone to growing their own vegetables right in their own backyard. So to do that, I knew that I needed to create a course where I could reach a wider amount of people. So my garden course is now open for enrollment. It does close April the 13th because I want us all to start the gardening season together. With this course, you'll have access immediately to 6 modules that I developed that kind of gives you the fundamentals of what we just talked about, but it goes more in depth in it. It also gives you lots of downloads and handouts and some action steps that you can take. But starting April the 15th, and this is what I think is a little different about my course, is we are going to garden together. On April the 15th, I'll be in my garden and we will start looking at what we want to plant. We're going to plant our garden. We're going to amend our soil, and we're going to get ready for those warm season vegetables. So every month through the gardening season, we will meet in my garden. You will receive a video directly in your email box. And then within the next week, we will meet live on Zoom. And we'll take all of your questions. We'll celebrate our successes. We'll also take a look at either what didn't work or what problems you're having. So it's like having your own garden coach right there beside you, growing in your garden. So that way we can be sure that you're having successes and also catch any problems you're having. So the course will start during the garden season, April the 15th, and we'll go all the way through November, where we'll learn how to put our garden to bed until the next season. For those of you who are in the webinar, I am offering as a bonus my today's forecast gardening shirt. This is the blue one and the green one. As you can see, I have on the coral colored, and these will be sent to you in the mail when you register for the course within the next 24 hours. There's also 5 herb markers that I will send you along with the t-shirt. So the course, again, there's one fee, or I have offered a 2-month payment plan if you would like to do that. But I do hope that you will join the course and that we can grow together and that you have a successful garden. That is my goal. I didn't want this course to be one of those where you buy the course and then you never open it. I want us to be gardening together throughout the gardening season. In the next couple or 3 days, you will be receiving a series of emails from me where I'll give you a couple of more ideas. Of course, I'll encourage you to join the course, but I'll also give you some resources where you can join my email. And you can also join my private Facebook group and follow along on my blog, where I offer tips every couple of weeks via email. So again, thank you for coming in, and you will also receive the replay to this within the next day or two. So in case you came in late or you didn't want to write everything down, you can go back over it. So thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you so much, Karen, for your time, your knowledge. We really appreciate it. I'm putting our email, both of our emails, in to the chat. If anybody wants to follow up, we're both available. Karen is Karen at Gardenchick.com, and I'm at Suzanne at getabiggerboat.com. Thanks everybody who's saying they appreciated it. We were so pleased that you attended. It's good to see you, Donna. Donna's another course creator.
Oh, hey, Donna. Yes.
Anyway, we just really appreciate it. We hope that you'll follow up. I really encourage you to join the course. I have seen all the videos and participated in helping to create the course. And it's really well done. It's very thoughtful. And what especially I like about it is that Karen really worked to keep it so clear and simple so that people could really follow along and make it action oriented. And I think that's really difficult to do. I know that all of her information would be helpful to people wanting to get started with the garden. So please sign up today. Thank you so much, Karen. Watch for follow-up videos, and I hope everybody takes advantage of the special offer to grab this really cute t-shirt. Bye, Karen.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you very much.